Okay, so what are we doing?
Locks, tongues and Wenton.
Pardon?
Locks, tongues and Wenton.
Excuse me, I can't quite hear you.
In the court of the Wenton King. God, I hate you. It's so unfair. So, God, what album are we doing? You're not my parents. God.
Look, Nevermind, Kev.
Nevermind by Nirvana. Thoughts?
It's a curious one for us to do, Kev.
Yeah, obviously we're deliberately doing something different. And it's so unfair. I hate you.
Obviously, it's...
Just put my street clothes back up.
Yeah.
Because you see, with bands like this, they just wear what they wear on the street. They don't dress up or anything like that.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
My natural inclination is to sort of dislike this. It's far too popular, and I'm a bit of a contrarian naturally. So automatically, I would set myself against this. Actually, I just think it's a fairly decent pop record with one or two catchy tunes on it that probably shifted the focus back towards rock in the 90s when there was a real danger of
rock becoming not rock.
Yeah.
The secret word for today is Yankovic. I've listened to it once basically. I made 2 attempts. First attempt I abandoned it halfway through the first song because I actively disliked it. But it wasn't the music I was disliking, it was the memory of what it was like then. And it strikes me now how it is an incredibly well crafted, incredibly simple selection of really good rock songs. It's classic rock. You could compare it to this, Back in the Black. It's that kind of thing. It's even simpler than Back in Black actually. And that's cool. But, so as an album, it's a very good album of very commercial rock music. I was taken aback, and it's only now I understand why I hated it so much years ago. Because we're exactly the right age to like this, aren't we? We were 13. I don't think I really understood at the time why. It is incredibly cynical, not in a musical, artistic way, in a manipulative way. It is an incredibly manipulative album. Just by chance, I've just reviewed We're Only In It For The Money by Zappa. Now, obviously, Zappa was parodying the hippie culture and the talk of revolution when all we were doing really was making money. This is that times 1,000 because the industry by this point was enormous. The amount of money involved was huge, and so this is a corporate piece of marketing like no other. Incredibly influential in that sense. And it totally convinced people that what they called the baby boomers music, so rock and roll from the 50s, finished in 1991, and then there was a new movement, which in retrospect is utter tosh. I mean, it really is. There is nothing new about this album. It is brilliant, and it is the guy's, a brilliant songwriter to be able to make some stuff that's so simple. The working title of the album was Sheep. Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. I don't believe this idea that Kurt Cobain was a victim of the corporate machine. He was very much knew what he was doing. If you read up on Kurt Cobain, he knew how to play an image. And there's all these weird quotes of things they said like, well, we're like children really. So we're making music for children because we are like children too. Hey kids, let's posse. It's unbelievably manipulative. Of course, they kind of disowned it afterwards, and they're very uncomfortable with it because it was so successful across the board. Obviously Rolling Stone and that lot loved that they could pretend it was something different to what's gone on before, which of course it isn't at all. We have talked about before about, you could say there's 2 types of rock music. There's this sort of stuff we like, which is we like the music for the music, and there's social music. That's what we came to the conclusion it is, isn't it? It's social music, it's fashion music. We'd say it's poser music. If this is poser music, it's the best poser music ever, because these are killer riffs.
I think there's a little bit of revisionism about your analysis of... I think the reason we didn't like this at the time is because we were already sort of rock fans.
Yeah.
At a time when it wasn't particularly fashionable, a rock
that was the thing.
fan was kind of a niche thing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you saw lots of other people who would have been into all sorts of basically modern pop suddenly getting into rock through this band Nirvana because it was incredibly successful, and therefore I think we would have seen people treading on our turf a little bit, and we would have resented that. I don't think you were picking up on the cynicism in there. I don't know if it was, when they made it was as cynical as you suggest. I think they were just trying to make an album, and it just happened to hit.
Yes.
And the companies sort of suddenly realised, okay, that is a real successful model, because I know they sold over 10 million albums in total, and then that led on to a whole sort of new era of pop
guitar
rock.
based
Yeah, pop. Which led to nu metal and all sorts of things like that. So the seed of badness is in here. Whether it was cynical on Kurt Cobain's...
It was to a certain extent. I mean, he did say, he called it children's music. He was trying to make the simplest melodies, and and he did say it's more about the melodies than the lyrics. It's the melodies and the riffs. Cool riffs and cool melodies. And incredibly simple.
No, I think it's quite accepted these days that music is marketed towards younger people. Like,
Well, that's the thing. Rock and roll always has been, hasn't it? You know, I challenge you to get an interview with Chuck Berry where he doesn't talk about money and how much he was earning. You know, it's always been about manipulating youth culture. It's shocking. And of course, they disowned it afterwards. I think it must have been horrifying how successful it was. You know, I didn't really mean it. Bloody hell! And you have to disassociate this music and Kurt Cobain with the marketing and the huge machine of the 90s as it was. Yeah. So the first song, how does it go? Is it? No.
Come as you were, as you were.
It's not that one either. Is it this one? Nearly?
Yeah.
Bit closer.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
That's
right.
That's the one. Yeah. That's the riff, yeah. So there we go. So Smells Like Teen Spirit, classic riff, obviously the Louis tradition. The lyrics are, as far as I'm concerned, incredibly cynical. Smells Like Teen Spirit, yeah, let's have a revolution, kids. Hey kids, buy our t-shirts and let's revolution. This is different, it's not the same again.
Here we are now.
Yeah, we can't hear what he's saying.
Right, okay.
But as far as I'm concerned, that's what that song's about. I mean, Dave Grohl has disowned the meaning of the song. He says he doesn't think it's about anything, he doesn't know what it's about. And I don't think he's being entirely honest. Is my opinion, but that's just my opinion. It's a great classic riff.
It is a classic, isn't it? That's the problem.
We made the joke about the Boston riff, but it isn't actually the Boston riff. It's just another variation on the same thing. People have been doing since the 50s.
The template is set for the album here. Obviously, the volume dynamics is key to the whole formula.
Very, very well produced. Very well played. You know, he's in absolute control of that guitar. He knows what he's doing.
And the interesting thing is they've slowed it down to make it audible. You can actually hear the words, so you can sing along with it. And I think that's where the pop.
Can you hear the words?
I can hear. Here we are now.
It's hard to hold Nordal's house with all these marbles in my mouth. That's okay. Yeah, so famous song. Another Brick in the Wall is a similar thing in that it's incredibly cynical. You know, Another Brick in the Wall was the single that went to #1, and you had punk kids who wouldn't listen to Pink Floyd going around going, we don't need no education, we don't need no thought control. Smells Like Teen Spirit, it's the same thing, but the difference is there's nothing, that's not supporting some art somewhere else. That's all there is. I'm not a teenager. Why am I supposed to listen to teenager music?
You're not supposed to, I mean...
We're told we have to. Well, not anymore. But we used to, at the time we were, certainly. Next song, In Bloom. I know all of these songs, and I haven't heard it since probably 1992. But that's got to say something, that I remember all the songs. This riff is a different type of riff, and I dislike it because I think it's a poser riff. It's a swagger. Look at the clothes I'm wearing riff.
Is this the one that sounds quite punky to start with?
No.
No.
It sounds grunge, whatever that is. I don't know what grunge is, because of course Soundgarden, nothing like this at all. Soundgarden, fantastic band. Great solo. Again, you can really see how he's in control of the guitar. There's some noisy solo-y stuff in there, and that's great. That's all there is, though. It's that riff and that solo, that's it.
Number 3.
Number 3, Come As You Are. Everyone knows this. I think of the 95% of this is corporate music. This is the best one of those. It's a classic riff. You know, change it a little bit, you've got Aerosmith. Brilliant. With really good vocals. He's in absolute control of his vocals. He's in control of his voice. You know, it's not just his natural. He's not just opening his mouth and that's his soul coming out. It's a carefully calculated sound, shiny and produced. Breed. I can't remember that.
No, I think it's the one.
Or is it? That one.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, good riff. They obviously agreed. Next.
Lithium.
Lithium. Really interesting. Lithium was the one. I think they recorded in a previous session, and he wrecked his voice trying to sing it. Not because he's shouting. He's never really shouting, or very rarely, because he's having to sing a very difficult melody, just like Roger Waters with Shine On Your Crazy Diamond. But the vocals are 90s vocals. Maybe he invented the 90s vocals, I don't know. But basically,
I think you might be right.
Singing like this, no vowels. Polly?
It's about Parrot.
Is it? Track 7.
Territorial. Can we say that in the court of Wenton?
I was wondering that. I don't know. Should we? Tell us. Let us know. This is one of the best things on the album, possibly the best thing on the album, because it's a natural song for them to do. It is less calculated to be melodic and commercial. It's a punk song. It sounds like Black Flag, but the vocals are restrained. Even when he's shouting, he's not really shouting. He has a vocal style which is very capable at sounding very intense without really shouting. Henry Rollins would shout. He doesn't really shout. But great. I'd happily listen to that. Next song.
Drain You. This is actually a play on words.
Wow.
It's derain you, which means take the lead away from you. It's a revolutionary song.
Great. Lounge Act is the next song. Very similar. Still in that sort of swaggery riff kind of thing. That's all I can say about that. Anything about Lounge Act?
How does it go?
Can't remember which one of those.
There's a lot of tracks on this album, isn't there?
Yes, that was 13 is too many.
No, nothing to say about Lounge Act.
It's strange, even though I can't actually quite remember it now. Stay Away is the same as Lounge Act. It's the same. It's the same riff. There's no difference.
Actually, I think this is the best song on the album by a country mile.
Stay Away.
Yeah, it's got this. There's a juxtaposition between the position he's taking, which is like a Dostoevsky take on modern humanistic life sort of thing, and the way the drums go.
Next song.
On a plane.
I can't. I've got some notes here, and you can't see. There's my notes. I don't normally have notes, but today I've got notes because I don't know the album very well. As we've decided to avoid swearing, I can't actually say what I think of this, but I will say Nickelback. Doesn't matter whether this is fashionable. Now, this is a far better album than anything Nickelback could make, but stylistically,
I like the way he spelled plane wrong, or they spelled plane wrong.
track 12.
Something in the way.
This is different because here he's actually experimenting with the texture of his voice and the guitar, and it doesn't go anywhere because that would scare the kiddies, obviously.
13.
The story goes that this was accidentally left off and then it became a bonus track or something. I don't think it was accidentally left off. I think that's them doing what they want to do, but that was too scary for the kiddies and they had to leave it off. That's my opinion. Again, an extension of the previous track in that it's all about the texture of his voice and the guitar, and that's it, and just driving it, and that's great. I'm happy with that, and it ends on a high.
So, we're going to do a review.
Well, that was it, wasn't it? Well, okay, so it's difficult album to grade because it is so successful in what it does. Doesn't that mean it gets full marks? No, it doesn't. I'm going to give it 4 eggs. There you go. How many eggs are you going to give it?
See, I'm naturally cynical, so I really should give it 3 eggs. But I'm going to give it 4 eggs as well. 4-egg album.
It's a 4-egg
That's a pretty good album, actually.
So yeah, it is a brilliant rock album. Forget all the cultural stuff associated with it. Just listen to it as a rock album, and it's a brilliant rock album. I can't remember In Utero. I did know it at the time. I get the impression that's a lot better. So it's so unfair! This has been the Wenton King, and we will return next week with a new band. See you next week! Give us some likes or some dislikes. You may give us some dislikes if you really like that.
And subscribe.
And wear towels indoors, because that's what people do in real life.
Yeah.
That went quite well, I think.
Yeah, I think we did. I think you laid on the kid stuff a bit heavy.
Yeah.
He sort of almost came across as a bit of a,
An adult.
Be sure to tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.